Hello paddlers and Happy New Year. It's January 7th and it's not exactly prime kayaking season in Wisconsin, but I am at Lake Columbia. Lake Columbia is a man-made lake made to cool the power plant here just south of Portage, Wisconsin. I think I'm technically in Decorah, but I'm on the south end of Portage between Portage and Poinette. I like to describe Lake Columbia as simultaneously the most beautiful and the ugliest place I've ever paddled. It's ugly because, well, it's a man-made lake with flat terrain and absolutely nothing to look at except for a big ugly power plant at the other end of the lake. But it's beautiful because when everything else is frozen in Wisconsin, this is the only place to paddle. There's absolutely nobody else here, which kind of surprises me because there's usually other paddlers here in the winter. I've even seen people swimming here, which is kind of weird. But the water is actually about 80 degrees at launch. Gets nothing but warmer as you go closer to the discharge, closer to the power plant, and cooler if you go up the other side of the lake. My forecast said it was supposed to be about 35 degrees today and no wind. My car says it's only about 27, 28 degrees on my way here, so a little bit chillier than I had anticipated, but I'm nice and layered up. I've got my paddling gloves and some hand warmers. No doubt my core will stay nice and toasty warm. As a matter of fact, you can definitely feel the heat coming up, radiating through your boat because the water is just that warm. So I think it'll be fine. Let's go. You can see a little bit of fog coming off the water today. The humidity is about 85% today, but I've been out here on days where the humidity is really, really low and it gets crazy foggy. And I mean crazy foggy with visibility like 20 feet. You really can't even see where you're going at all. And it's kind of scary and kind of cool. Days like that, I really tend to hug the shore because you just really have no bearings other than your GPS really where you are on the lake. Out of my fleet of boats I have to choose from today, I chose to go with my little bitty 12-foot Perception Tribute. I love this little boat and there's several reasons why I chose this boat today. I've actually had my sea kayak, my 14-foot boat, and this boat in Lake Columbia before. I knew before coming out here that the launch was going to be really rocky, so I didn't want to bring the Kevlar. So another factor is the fact that I knew I was going to be pretty cold coming off this lake, and I'm very, very comfortable transporting this little poly boat without bow and stir lines, just strapping it to my roof rack. So if I can save a step when I get off the water and not have to do that and still feel pretty secure about transporting my boat on the highway, that is a bonus. Plus, you know, when I'm not kayaking every day, I get a little sloppy at lifting my heavier boats. And when I say heavier, they're still only about 50 pounds, but this little guy is only about 42 pounds. It's a piece of cake to just toss this thing up on the roof rack, even if I'm getting a little winter soft and I'm kind of out of practice for putting my boats up on the car. Time to activate the hand warmers. I had to switch out my paddling gloves to these nice warm North Face gloves that I bought for snowshoeing with the hand warmers in them, and man, what a difference. There's an urban legend around these parts that the largest piranha ever caught was right here on Lake Columbia in Wisconsin. Back in 1994, someone caught an almost 7-pound, what they thought was a piranha, closely related to piranha, but they were actually pacus. There were 4 of them caught in the 90s, removed from the lake. DNR just assumes that somebody had them as pets and released them in Lake Columbia, and they thrived probably for a long time because the water is so warm here. We do have snow in south central Wisconsin on the ground right now, but what you're looking at on the edge of the water is not snow at all. It would be far too warm right here for there to be snow that hasn't melted. It's actually just this frothy stuff. From what I've told, I think this is just a sign that there's a bunch of healthy algae in the lake. It's a pretty thriving ecosystem, I guess. This is a pretty popular fishing spot, but it's just this frothy stuff. Getting a little closer to the Columbia Power Plant right here. There is a point where if you get too close, they will, over these loudspeaker things, tell you you need to back off. And if you don't hear them, they will meet you at the launch when you get off the lake, and they'll say, hey, don't do that again. And yes, I'm speaking from experience. Fog's getting a little thicker as we get into warmer water here. It gets a little frothy as well. So we're kind of getting to that point here where I think they're going to get a little upset if I get a whole lot closer. So I think I'm just going to err on the side of caution and not get any closer at this point. We're probably about a half mile to 3/4 of a mile from the Wisconsin River right here. The Columbia Power Plant pulls its water from the Wisconsin River, does its thing, and cools the coal-fired power plant, gets superheated. It gets discharged on this side of the lake over here at the power plant. It circulates through Lake Columbia. Oh, it's probably about a mile and a half, mile and 3/4 down to launch, goes up the other end. It's kind of like a giant U shape. It goes through another cooling process at the plant before it's discharged back into the Wisconsin River. The Columbia Power Plant was built in the 1970s in 2 different phases. That started producing energy in 1975 after the first stage was completed, and then 1978 there was a second stage. Maybe that's why we have thing 1 and thing 2 here. Maybe that's 1 in 78, 1 in 75. I don't know. I have no idea how any of these things work. But in any event, in 2021, the joint utility companies announced that this power plant would be closing by mid-2024. I mean, yay, alternate sources of energy and all of that, but I was a little bit sad to hear that my winter kayaking spot was going to be disappearing. However, in mid-2022, the utility companies announced that due to supply chain demands, that it would be open probably until mid-2026. So I've got the rest of this winter plus 2 more winters for sure on Lake Columbia, and we'll see if it's still going to be open after that. When it closes, I guess I'm just going to have to find more warm weather destinations to escape the Wisconsin winters. So here's more of that frothy stuff that you find floating on Lake Columbia. I've just got to say kudos to whoever invented these handy dandy little chemical hand warmers. Those inside of my North Face gloves, my hands are so nice and toasty. That's probably what prevents me from doing more cold water paddling, is that my fingers get so dang ice cold, and you know, they get numb. It's hard to paddle. It makes me crabby, but there's no part of my body that's really uncomfortable out here in, I don't know, it's probably 26 degrees by now. So they say it's all about having the right equipment, which I guess is true because I'm quite comfortable. That being said, my preferred attire for kayaking is a tank top. But looking on the bright side, at least the UV index is extraordinarily low today, and I don't need sunblock. So there's that. Woohoo, I can see my car. that's it for me today on Lake Columbia. I actually lasted a little bit longer than I thought I would. It's like getting to be dark here pretty soon. That's going to be it for me for my kayak season for maybe about 2 months or so. Next week I'm having knee replacement surgery. Make that a double, in fact. But I have so much video to edit while I'm down that will give me a lot of opportunity to get that posted. I went to Lake Tahoe in September. I still haven't had time to edit and post that video yet, so stay tuned for that. That was an awesome time paddling. It was absolutely fantastic. Anyway, I'm glad you came with me on one of my very rare winter paddling adventures in Wisconsin. So if you haven't yet, please be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any of my upcoming adventures. Thanks for coming. See you next time.